Good evening, students, alumni, faculty, and staff. My name is Alina Billing, and I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Relations for the School of Sport, Tourism, and Hospitality Management. Today, I'm pleased to introduce the STHM Alumni Association's Minority Alumni Coalition. The MAC is dedicated to providing educational and eye-opening experiences for all STHM students from diverse perspectives. Today, the MAC's Education Committee, led by Kendra Plummer, presents Relationship Management 101, Build Your Personal Advisory Board the Right Way. This panel will be moderated by Zachary James. Zack is a 12-year veteran of the sports and entertainment industry, having spent most of that time with the New Jersey and Brooklyn Nets. He's currently the CEO of Rebel Hill Consulting, which provides strategic marketing, content creation, and brand growth services to small businesses, entrepreneurs, and sports professionals. Zack is also a partner at My New Philly, a video production house and co-creator space, while also serving as the business development strategist at Novitas Marketing, a 360-degree marketing firm providing website development, SEO, graphic design, and more. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you to the MAC for hosting all of us. I'll now turn things over to Zack, who will introduce today's panelists.
Thank you, Elena, and welcome to all the students and alumni who are joining us today. I am excited to host yet another MAC panel, and this one's all about relationships, all about networking. We have some great alumni here who are going to give you some tips, some tricks, and advice on really how to build relationships the right way. And of course, the one unique thing is even building relationships in today's climate is different than it was when we came out of school. So we're going to give you some tips that you can use both digitally and in person, and I'm super excited to get this started and introduce you to some really great alumni. So we're going to kick it off. I'm going to have everyone introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about their career, their path to where they're at now, and give us a quick highlight about someone in your career journey who's kind of helped you along the way, someone who you built a relationship with that has, of course, paid dividends for you. So we're going to kick things off with a good friend of mine. Many of you may know her as the president of the Alumni Association, but we're going to start with Rebecca Krick from the Wharton School. Rebecca, tell the folks about yourself and a little bit about your journey.
Oh, thanks so much, Zach, and hi, everyone. Like Zach said, my name is Rebecca Krick. I'm a Hospitality Management 2016 graduate, and I reside in the Point Breeze neighborhood of Philadelphia, so I'm still local. Right now, I'm the relationship manager of employer engagement on that team at the Wharton MBA Career Management office at UPenn. So just, a hop, skip, and jump over the South Street Bridge there. Like Zach said, I'm also president of the STHM Alumni Association. While I was in STHM, kind of jump-starting my career journey, I had 2 internships with Marriott, one in F&B, the other in their front office operations. And then I did 2 internships with Wyndham Worldwide, one in talent acquisition based out of their headquarters in New Jersey, and the other one at their Old City property. When I graduated in 2016, I accepted a full-time recruiting role with Wyndham, moved to New Jersey, but then was laid off in 3 months because they were downsizing the company. So due to the connections I made at the STHM Career Fair, I was able to land an inaugural cafe executive officer position with Saxby's. And after a year and a half, I became their manager of campus recruiting. So this leads me to where I am now. I could not have gotten into my current role at the Wharton School without my manager at Wyndham, Sarah, who actually worked with my current manager at the Wharton School, Jamie. So because Jamie, my manager at Wharton, knew Sarah, my manager at Wyndham, from recruiting Wharton MBAs, when Jamie saw Wyndham on my resume, she asked me who I worked with in the phone interview. I said Sarah and instantly had a connection that helped me get the role I'm in today. In addition to my full-time job and STHM Alumni Association, I'm in the Emerging Leaders Committee of the Philadelphia Society of Human Resources Managers. I'm also a member of Forte, Ramba, and the MBA Career Services and Employer Alliance European Conference Planning Committee. I'm also the program representative for my master's program in the student government, and I'm pursuing my advanced degree in organizational dynamics at UPenn. So thank you so much for having me this evening.
Thank you so much for that, Rebecca. As you can see, and this will be a trend, folks on this panel have had great experience in our industry and have a wealth of knowledge to share. Thank you very much for that, Rebecca. Now let's move on to Evan Kashan. He is with Turnkey Search. Evan, tell the folks about yourself.
Hey everyone, Evan Kashan here. I was actually a double grad of undergrad and master's with Temple with STHM. I did the 4+1 program in 16 and 17 graduation. And since then, I've been working at Turnkey Search. We place executives kind of from one team to another, or the league office to a team, or any of those kind of areas. So we get to work with some of the top teams in the industry, as well as league offices, brands, media companies, etc. I'm our director of operations, which means everything and nothing. Doing a lot of the behind the scenes administrative work and keeping the trains on the tracks per se. Someone who's helped me along the way. I've kind of grown here. I started as an intern, just got a semester-long internship, and now it's been 4 years. So I'd give it to my manager, Diana Buccino, who's really just taught me like what school doesn't necessarily teach you, and like the real world kind of applications and stuff. So just learning all about like how to be in an office setting, how to work with coworkers, how to build kind of those work relationships and those kind of things. I'd give that to her.
Awesome, Evan, awesome. And for all you folks who are sport and rec focused, as you can tell from Evan's career, he's someone you want to network with. So make sure you reach out to Evan on LinkedIn after this this presentation. Next up, Erica Desrosiers. Did I get it right, Erica?
You did. You probably didn't have to practice that hard. So
Erica is with the Atlanta Hawks. Erica, tell us a little bit about your journey and someone who's helped you along the way.
Sure. Hello, everyone. As Zach mentioned, my name is Erica Desrosiers, and I am an STHM alumni class of 2013. I was also a dual major. So while I was a sport and recreation major with STHM, I was also a finance major with Fox. I knew that I wanted to combine my love of sport and recreation with my love of numbers and Excel. So I was definitely really focused while I was undergrad. I would say that I had several people that were kind of on what I would like to call my professional board of directors throughout my entire career. So the first one that I would have to mention, I think every single one of us on this panel know him, and some of the participants that are listening might too, then Dean Jeffrey Montag was probably the first Temple person that I met. I met him on my second day at Temple because I walked into the wrong office. And so that kind of started our budding relationship. But I was very clear about what I wanted my professional goals to be. And I wanted to work in professional sports, but I didn't want to go towards a traditional sales or marketing route. I really wanted to focus within finance. So Dean Montag was able to connect me with my first junior internship, where I worked at Aramark with the Philadelphia Phillies, which then turned into an extended internship when I went across the street and worked with Aramark with the Eagles. So I had that experience working in finance and accounting in sports, and realized that it was definitely something that I wanted to continue to do. My senior internship was at Madison Square Garden within the sport section, working with the New York Knicks and the New York Liberty in the finance, doing all of their budgets and working with all the departments that roll up in between those two sporting entities. My manager, or my intern manager at the time, was Ray Servone. So he had been with Madison Square Garden by that time about 6 years and had come up with the company. So he was really able to kind of take me under his wing. I learned more about really what the financial aspects of working within a professional sports industry was. It was very different than what I had experienced working with Aramark on the concession side. So working with actual sports teams, this was something that I wanted. I was able to secure a full-time job after my internship with MSG, and I was at MSG for about 4 more years before I decided that I kind of wanted to venture out and do something a little bit different. So I went into music. So I was with Warner Music Group for about 2 years, and I was actually approached on LinkedIn by a recruiter who was working with the Atlanta Hawks, looking, to fulfill their senior financial analyst position. because at that time, Ray Servone, who when I was at MSG was part of MSG, but when I left, he actually joined the NBA League office, and he was actually one of the league office advisors that oversaw the auditing for all of the NBA teams. So I was able to reach out to him to kind of get a real picture of the Atlanta Hawks organization. Because of course, when you're interviewing them and they're interviewing you. So both parties want to put their best foot forward. So being able to have an objective third party who worked with the Hawks and kind of was able to tell me that, throughout his relationship, some of the things that he saw that they needed, what he thinks they would find, pleasurable in a new employee joining the finance team. And with the Hawks, it's a lot different when you're versus working with the Knicks. The Knicks had a very large finance team, whereas the Hawks, we were a team of 2. We just hired somebody else, and now we're a team of 3. So now we do all of the budgeting and the financials for not only the Atlanta Hawks, which is pro basketball team, but our G League team, our NBA 2K team, and now we're kind of venturing over to the arena finance whenever we are allowed to have events again. So, yep.
Wow, thank you, Erica. And I love hearing those stories where someone goes from sports, out of sports, back to sports. I'm sure we'll get more into that journey a little later on, but thank you again for sharing. Now let's move on to Nicole Bizuga from the Hamilton area YMCA. Hi, Nicole, and tell the folks a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Nicole Bizuga. I am the Senior Aquatic Director at the Hamilton Area YMCA in Hamilton, New Jersey. I graduated from STHM in 2010 in sport and recreation, and during my time with STHM, I interned with the Wachovia Center, which is now the Wells Fargo Center, in sport and marketing. And I also worked with World Team Tennis, which is the Philadelphia Freedoms. It's professional tennis, doing sales and marketing with them, a little bit of everything for them in different roles. After graduating, I came back to Hamilton and got involved and wanted to see where recreation could take me. When I was at Temple, was very involved with PRPS, which is the Parks and Recreation, and wanted to see where it could take me. And I've worked in aquatics now for over 16 years. I mean, I stayed constant through college and that working with the Y, and the Y just felt like home. And I oversee a multi-branch facility. We have 2 pools on site, and we also service one outside. We do about 3,000 swim lessons a year, and we have a day camp where we serve about 300 to 400 campers weekly in the summer for about 10 to 12 weeks. This summer, obviously, we were impacted by that a lot, and I have branched out into other areas of water safety. And that I am also the aquatic network chair for the Ys of New Jersey. We have a Y New Jersey Alliance for aquatic professionals. There's about 38 of us. So I'm the network chair for that, and get to help with that. And I think what really got me to where I am in my field and in the aquatic profession itself, it's a little bit different, the professional sports, was my former COO, Karen. She was my aquatic guru, is what I would love to call her, kind of. She trained for the Y, and we do a lot of training. So she always pushed for me to continue learning and educating myself in the profession and other areas. And I became a trainer for YMCA swim lesson in instructing, and was able to teach my staff how to, obviously certify them in swim instructing. But that actually took me to another level. That through that connection, I was one of 2 from New Jersey that got to go to YUSA in Chicago to become a faculty member that can teach trainers, can create trainers from instructor candidates, and that has helped our area to be able to push the Y movement, but also it's also allowed me to create other relationships, which I want to talk about later, but was invited last year to be part of a pilot program for Diverse Ability Swim, And we were one of 10 in the nation that helped to develop a diverse ability swim program using the Y Swim Lesson program. And we provided 75 free swim lessons to different diverse abilities in our community, as well as the other Ys were able to. And we were set for this year to be able to do that again and be mentors for other Ys that would be introducing it as well. Obviously, COVID's put that a little bit on pause, but I think that's, if my COO Karen hadn't, helped me navigate learning how to become an instructor, I don't think I would have reached those opportunities.
Right. And that's a big thing of people who help us along the way. Sometimes it is that guidance as opposed to a connection they give us that really helps our career advance. Last but certainly not least, Brendan Albert from NCSA. Brendan, tell us a little bit about your journey. Tell the folks what NCSA is, and of course, someone who's helped you along the way.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Zach. So my name is Brendan Albert. I am an alum, obviously, of 2012. NCSA stands for Next College Student Athlete. So my role is helping high school student athletes, specifically I work in our football department, find the right collegiate fit for them based on the right athletic, academic, and of course, career aspirations. A little bit about my journey. I think I'm a great fit in this kind of setting here because every one of my real adult tax-paying jobs since graduation came because of a personal network. So after I graduated, or during my senior internship, I should say, I did my internship at IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida. It was a great opportunity for me, worked mostly in our NFL development team, worked with probably about 60 different guys there preparing for the NFL draft. Bunch of big names there like Cam Newton, DeAndre Hopkins, several others. Great opportunity for me, but hey, just like all of us, sometimes you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. I can relate to Rebecca was going through because when I was there, IMG had a shakeup from the top down, including my former boss, Chris Winkie, leaving. And I was at the wrong place at the wrong time, and IMG decided to go on a hiring freeze. So I ended up falling back on my personal network, and I ended up getting a job with my national fraternity, which moved me to Indianapolis, Indiana. And I didn't know a single person in the entire state. So I ended up having the opportunity to reach out to a high school football program, asked to volunteer with their team, started coaching high school football there, which was a great opportunity for me. A year later, IMG Academy had an opening at their head coaching position. That former staff who hired me for an intern reached out to me and asked me if I thought the Carmel head coach would be a good fit. Kevin Wright ended up leaving Carmel High School, ended up being hired at IMG Academy. So it's kind of a neat story there of networking works both ways. It doesn't work just from the top down, it also works from other way around. So after that, I had the opportunity to join NCSA because one of the assistant coaches I was coaching at Carmel High School with worked for NCSA, and he said, "Hey, we think you'd be a great fit to join us. Only issue is you have to move to our West Coast office in Las Vegas." We had this conversation in about November, and I was like, "Yep, sign me up. I'm totally okay with leaving Indianapolis in November." My wife and I moved to Las Vegas. We've been out here for 4 years. My role at NCSA, as I mentioned, is working with high school student athletes, getting them to recruited by the right collegiate fits. But our parent company is called Reigning Champs. Reigning Champs also has a partnership with the NFL, NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball. And what we do is we also help with a lot of their major camps. So if you think of like the NFL Play 60 camps, if you think of like the Rivals camps, you think of the Pro Bowl or the Super Bowl camps that are youth empowered, we're also the manpower that helps there. So that's also kind of part of my role, is having that opportunity to assist with a lot of those youth development camps powered by the NFL through our partnership. So I'm really excited to join you guys, and thanks, Zach, for the opportunity.
Indeed. So folks, as you see, we have a very diverse and talented group of alumni here, and we're going to dig a little deeper into the philosophy they have behind networking. And I think we'll start with Evan. Evan, tell us, what is your personal philosophy towards relationship building, and how does it help you in your career?
Yeah, I like the Michael Scott funny reference of you miss every shot you don't take, which is obviously from Gretzky before that. There's no problem with someone saying no, right? You send a LinkedIn connection, you do it the right way, you go about it right, and usually you'll get a yes. But if you don't get a yes, you get a no. It doesn't hurt. It didn't cost you anything. It wasn't any issue with and there's no barrier to doing such a thing. So my philosophy is go after it. Like, you got to be that aggressive person, obviously in the right and respectful way and with the right tone. But you're only going to grow your network by sending that connection or asking that person to make that connection to you and that person, do an introduction. So I just like to go for it. When you're teetering on the fence, when it's in a conference setting, should I walk up to that person? Yes, like, just do it, go for it. They're probably thinking the same thing about you, staring at you from across the room. So that's the way that I go at it is you gotta shoot your shot, you gotta go for it. And then it helps you in so many ways. And some can be like short-term, immediate, like they say, oh, you should talk to this person, they have a job right now, and now you got that job. Or it could just be like, oh, now we're in each other's network, we know each other. In 10 years from now, it's something that comes up as we're both in way different positions than when we met. So it always helps, and you don't know how it's going to help, but that's why you still, take that call or start that conversation.
Right. Folks who are watching, write this down. Shoot your shot. It applies to all areas of your life. Let's move on to Erica. Tell us a little bit about your philosophy towards networking.
So I always think that it's easier to garner an organic relationship when there's kind of a common area of interest. I know for me, being a Black woman in sports, I'm a double minority. Professional sports is definitely seen as a boys' club. So being a Black woman in sports, I've done my research. I, for one, am one of those who I think if you can perfect the amount of LinkedIn stalking that you can do, it will definitely work in your favor. Whether you're going to a conference and you see speakers are speaking in certain panels, definitely look them up and trying to see where you can pretty much bridge a gap where that I have this interest, they have this interest, or I worked in this field or with this company or with this manager, and I know they had experiences with them. So being able to do it organically is really a plus. Right now, a lot of professionals know that, when students reach out to them, when younger professionals reach out to them, it is definitely, to kind of pick their brain or, to inquire about mentorship and things like that. One thing that I will say is very important is if you're reaching out to someone on LinkedIn just to drum up a conversation, that's great. You do not want every single time you reach out to a member of your network to be to inquire about a job or to inquire about a company. In order to kind of foster a more organic relationship, it shouldn't just be based upon how they can help you, but to also show an interest in what they're doing. LinkedIn is a great tool because a lot of professionals will, do posts about their career progress or what their company is doing. So just taking the time to send a message to say, hey, I saw your post, congratulations, or, how has this affected you, and things like that. That way, every time you reach out to them, they're more willing to open up that email or listen to that voicemail where they don't think that you're kind of just out there with your hand out, hoping, while they understand that they have the breadth of knowledge or they have the position that you're hoping to adhere to. I definitely think organic relationships where it's more of a give and take and you take interest in them beyond what they can help you with your career. That has definitely helped me facilitate a lot of great bonds over the last 10 years or so that I've been within the industry. I still keep in touch with all of my former managers at Madison Square Garden. I still keep in touch with all of my former colleagues at Warner Music Group. One great example that I have is, Madison Square Garden, unfortunately, due to the pandemic, had to lay off about 300 employees back in August. So a few of those were colleagues that I worked with directly while I was there. So me reaching out to them, asking them, to send me, whatever resumes that they may have, or just kind of checking in to see where their morale is. I do know that once they do find a new position, it will still be a relationship that we can continue fostering.
Great points, Erica. Great points. And you touched on a key one, which kind of relates to a question we received prior to starting the panel, which was, how do some of us utilize LinkedIn to network and grow our relationships? And you use it as a great tool to keep in contact with folks that normally, you might not be in contact with on a daily, monthly, yearly basis. you can still maintain those relationships. And an interesting thing that happens is, as you know, right now, or at one point, let's say for me, for example, when I worked with the Nets, when I left, everyone I knew worked at the Nets. But that was 6 years ago. That same group of people that everyone I knew worked for about 20 different teams at all different levels. And now my relationships, without me doing anything, just by maintaining them, I have connections all over the country just from that crop of folks that, I worked with in the past. So really, really important to keep in contact with people, and LinkedIn's a great tool to do it. Let's move on to Nicole. Nicole, tell us a little bit about your philosophy towards relationship building and networking.
I definitely agree with both with building the relationships. I think you need to maintain them. I know pre-COVID, we have a network. I talked about our aquatic network in New Jersey. We would meet maybe like a few times a year and try to maintain or send emails and do that. But post a lot of the closures, and then with the reopenings of the outdoor pools and now indoor pools, we created more of a shared drive, and we're able to not have to recreate the wheel. I think some of my opportunities to be able to go to YMCA and be part of other the pilot programs, and that I was able to lean on some of my friends and professional relationships that I've made in other states that were opening. One of my friends in Virginia, she oversees her association. She has 18 pools in her association with her Y. And I was able to lean on her to say, like, how did you reopen your pools now that we're reopening? They reopened in May, we reopened in July. And she was able to share what they had been doing. So that way my network was able to also be able to use it. I think building those relationships, and like Erica talked about, maintaining them is so important. So you're not recreating a wheel in your own, whatever your operations are, other professionals are doing it. So why not lean on those relationships that you have? I think is really what my best advice.
Agreed. Brendan, give us a little bit about your philosophy towards relationships and networking.
Yeah, I'm going to go two different ways here. One, I had a great connection with Dr. Jarvis Bailey, who, former Temple alum, and he gave me a really good piece of advice when I was going through my senior internship. I had an opportunity with one college program that was close, and I had IMG Academy, and I said, "Hey, Dr. Bailey, which one do you think?" And he said, "Well, I look at your resume, and everything that I read says you're willing to work 60 miles away from home." And he said, "That's not what you want. You want your resume to say you're willing to take the best opportunity." So I think when it comes to relationship building, this is kind of a great story in how it reflects. Be willing to step out of your comfort zone here. I love Evan's Dr. Michael Scott, quote. It's actually literally on my wall, Evan. So I 100% buy into that as well. But I also think you have to kind of convince yourself that you're valuable, because we all get nervous about it. We all get the sweaty palms, and all that's completely normal. So what I would urge you to remind yourself in those moments is networking is a two-way street. It is not just you going up to that person asking for a job. Down the line, that person might need you, or vice versa, whatever the case might be. So remind yourself in those moments, networking is a two-way street. Mm-hmm. And similar to like what Erica was referring to earlier, of saying, hey, maybe I can help you, maybe I can volunteer, or vice versa, building personal relationships so that when you are in a position of change, it's not an awkward first interaction. So I know I'm kind of copying off my answers, off my teammates here, Zach, but they gave me some great answers to steal.
No, that was a great way of putting it too. And even sometimes hearing the same information, but from a different angle, helps you really retain it and understand it. So no, that's appreciated. And for anyone here who might have, been to any of my sessions, I've done a couple sessions at Temple called Networking Like a Boss. One of the key things I always say is, give. When you go into a networking setting, the mindset is to give value to the other person. If that's your mindset, it's going to come back to you. You will benefit from it, and you'll build a relationship easier. I want to have relationships with people that want to help me. Why wouldn't I? So always think to give value. Sometimes if you don't have a depth of experience, your value might be time. It might be an internship that's not for school credit, but you're trying to learn something. So think about how you can give to the folks that you really want to build and have sow into you at some point. And let's finish off this topic, this question with Rebecca. Give us some of your thoughts towards your philosophy on relationship building and networking.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. And I mean, I'll just say with our relationship, which has really stemmed over the last year, I definitely hear what you're saying with, give back and always have something to contribute. I think I personally learned that from you just in the short time we've known each other. So thank you for practicing what you preach. For me, to answer the question, just thinking of my role, literally my title is relationship manager. I don't know how much clearer that can get, but just to dig a bit deeper here, what I do at the Wharton School in our MBA career management department. So imagine it's like the Center for Student Services or the career office, like your Mr. Mayor, Ms. White, or Ms. Hall. And that's kind of who I am at the school. I'm the one doing the outreach to any of our employer partners who want to come in and attract our MBA students and get that talent. So for me, whenever I, do my outreach, I want to make sure I'm connecting with those employers saying, hey, we have this wonderful talent, but we also have students that are interested in your actual roles. I'm not just going to go out and promise them talent that I won't be able to fulfill myself. So kind of alluding to what everyone else has said, if you're going to reach out to someone, make sure you have something to offer them, but also know what you would like to get from them in return. Also, something I think I've learned over the years, and something that I learned from a mentor of mine, is to always picture MMFI across the head of someone new you're meeting. MMFI stands for make me feel important. If you are meeting someone for the first time, and even for the time after, you should always be fully engaged with them and giving them your full attention. You don't know the connections they might have, but you want to make sure that when you're having those initial conversations with people, you're giving that 110% and you're really listening to what they have to say so that you can contribute back to that conversation. Bringing this full circle, this helps me in my career when I'm talking to recruiters of companies for our students, because when I'm talking to them, they are my number one priority. I might cover another company in the same industry. So if we're talking sports, I might reach out to the 76ers and, the Nets, but I'm going to make sure that the both of them feel like they are my number one priority at the end of the day. And with those relationships, with those recruiters, that could lead to a new opportunity to me as well. So selfishly, I always make sure that I'm doing an exceptional job because I have been headhunted by them before, but I'm not ready to jump ship quite yet from the Wharton School.
Now, thank you so much, Rebecca. And, I might steal that MMFI for the next edition of my workshop. I think that's a great tip. We're going to go through this next question rather quickly because we've kind of been dropping advice and tips this whole time, and we have some great questions from our attendees that have come in. So we'll start this one with you, Erica, and feel free to be brief because I know we've given a lot of advice already. But what is one piece of advice you would give to someone who's brand new to networking, someone who really hasn't done it much?
I would say take your time. Networking is very nerve-wracking. So if you're at a conference and you see a group of people talking, if you're not a very confident, public speaker, or if you're a little bit nervous, look around the room to someone who seems, off on their own. Don't jump in when there's like a group of 10 people all wanting to talk to one person. Look around, see if there's other panelists or just other attendees that seem to be off on their own. It's kind of easier to kind of get your feet wet, and you can kind of foster a more genuine relationship when you are talking to one person versus it's 8 of you trying to get the attention of the CEO of a sports team, whereas the person that you may end up talking to is probably the one that actually has the influence over the CEO. That's happened a lot of times. So I'll definitely say, don't feel pressured to, jump into a crowd, and to have your voice heard over everyone else. It's definitely easier, find someone who's off to the side and kind of foster a relationship with them there.
Great advice. Great advice. Nicole, do you have a tip for our attendees?
Yeah, I think once you do meet that person that you're trying to network with, I think you can't just, meet them once and then let it be. I know Montag always pushed business cards. So try to always have your business cards on you or your information. That way you can get theirs as well. And then stay in contact with them. Keep contact with them, even if it's just checking in and seeing if there's anything that you can develop and grow with them. I think that's a good way to start.
Indeed. Brendan, give us a tip for the viewers.
Research them, take notes, use those as like the jumping off points in your conversation here, and also know yourself. And what I mean by that is, if you're someone who's naturally an introvert, or you're someone who maybe, gets sweaty palms and gets nervous meeting people, you should absolutely reach out to that person before the networking event and introduce yourself, whether that's sending them your resume or just connecting with them. I think it's always a good idea to reach out to someone before a networking event. But if you know you're someone who maybe isn't the best in a one-on-one setting in a networking event, or you're naturally a little more reserved, I would really encourage you specifically to reach out to them before that networking event.
Indeed. And I'll actually jump in here with a tip before going to Rebecca. I think one other area is, I always tell people, be a subject matter expert on something. Have there be something that you can have a conversation with that's not necessarily your job. It can be loosely related, but have something that you can engage in a very deep conversation with folks that you would meet at a networking event, because it's those conversations that really break down barriers and help you be able to communicate and converse with new people that you don't really know. Sorry to jump in there, Rebecca. We're on to you. Give us a tip.
No, very, very good advice here. I have three key things that I thought of. So if you're early on your networking journey, which I think many of you are with our mix that we have this evening, if you're doing an initial outreach, you want to give the person an update of where you are kind of on your journey so far. Are you a student? Are you a recent graduate? Are you in between jobs? Kind of give some context so they know where the conversation might be headed and understand where you're coming from. And then follow up is so important. If you do forget to follow up with someone, I have found that starting during the new year, so after like literally New Year's, if you follow up that week, people are generally more inclined to engage with you. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because it's after the holidays, maybe it'll be 2021 and people are happy about that. But I found in years past that people will randomly engage with you at the start of the new year if you say you would love to connect, get to know them better, or following up on a conversation that fell flat. Additionally, if you have a conversation with someone about something is going to happen. So if I reached out to Zack, said, hey, Zack, can you help me prep for this interview? I have it next week. And then I don't follow up with Zack about that interview. He's going to be like, well, I hope Rebecca got the job. Like, I don't know. Follow up with that person. Let them know what impact you had in them helping you. And then finally, please send a thank you note whenever possible, whether it is, a recruiter coming from, any type of employer that's going to recruit you all who are students, try to get that information, just send a thank you, thank them for coming, sharing their time. Or if it's at a connection, just sending that thank you goes miles with a relationship.
And a reminder, folks, you are getting some jewels here. So by all means, please feel free to take notes, and note that this will be on our YouTube page shortly after the presentation is done, and on the STHM Connections platform. So let's finish up this topic. Let's go to Evan. Evan, give us a tip or something, some advice towards someone who's really new to this networking game.
Yeah, I think it's all about what Erica was saying in the first question, actually, which is just find a connection point, find something that, we both went to Temple. We both majored in sports management. We both know this person. It's a mutual connection that you previously looked up on LinkedIn, going back to Brendan on the research side. Find those mutual connections, find that, we both played this sport, growing up, whatever it could be. Find it and use that to help bridge the gap. That's my new to networking tip. And then follow up, find something that you talked about in the conversation that, you connected on. If they gave you a tip or a piece of advice, show that you wrote it down by this few days after, saying, thanks, still thinking about that quote you gave, and then like colon and give the quote. That'll really show that it was meaningful, and that'll definitely MMFI.
Right. And I tell folks, the follow-up is so important, literally in every phase of business. even if it's not networking, with me, I had a long stint in sales, and following up with people literally was the bread and butter of how you would be profitable. Once I got better at following up, I did better in my job. And following up with networking, the more you follow up with people, the better those relationships are going to be, the more relationships you're going to have, and the healthier those relationships will be. So we have one more question we're going to touch on before we go to some student questions. I'll kick this off with Nicole this time. How do you approach someone to be your mentor? So give us like a tip or a strategy, something that can help you approach someone to become a mentor of yours.
Actually just did this. So I was able to create a relationship with she's our YUSA senior aquatic advisor, operations. She's in charge. She wrote Why Swim Lessons, Lindsay, and through just different networking opportunities that I had, becoming a faculty or the diverse abilities, I was able to create a relationship with her, and now I've been able to approach her to become my mentor and help me along the way to create different goals that I have. So we're right now working to try to be to create an alliance for swim safety in New Jersey and have it be the role model for the schools to use in their curriculum for swim safety. We have a program called Safety Air and Water, and just seeing she actually really helped guide me on how to do that. So I think you have to have a rapport with them and want to feel comfortable, obviously, on the professional side, but we stay in contact on a personal side too. So I think you have to have a bit of both. But it took some time to get to that place with her.
Indeed. Brendan, any advice or tips towards approaching a mentor?
Zach, I would say out of sight, out of mind affects all of us, right? And we all fall into that trap. So when you build a relationship with someone, whether it's your first interaction with them, your second interaction with them, or similar like Rebecca was talking about, if you're having someone prep you for an interview, tell them, hey, I want to let you know how this goes. Can I connect with you in a week? What's next Tuesday at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time look like for you? There's nothing wrong with ending a conversation with setting a next check-in point. And that check-in point could be more social than professional. Nothing wrong with that. But I mean, I'm sure we all are guilty of out of sight, out of mind. So it's not a big deal to end those conversations with a next touch point.
Great advice. Rebecca, let's move on to you. Give us some tips on approaching someone to be your mentor.
Sure. So for me, when I am looking for a mentor or I see the opportunity to engage with someone who I would want to be my mentor, I think about what not only I'm going to get out of the conversation, but what they're going to get out of the conversation. I think, as much as the responsibility lies on the mentor, it also relies on the mentee, because you still should be bringing something to the table, whether that's insight, whether that's an innovative idea, what have you. I think it really is a two-way street. And when you do find someone to be your mentor, you need to kind of understand, think about the time you want to spend with them and why. Do you want to brainstorm X, Y, and Z? Do you want them to introduce you to people in order to connect those dots, and you're going to have them be your mentor because of their network and you want to learn from them and learn how they got into their position. Personally, I have always looked for mentors that are more senior than me, but recently I've kind of looked to find mentors that are kind of, quite, flatline, the same way I am in my role right now. So other managers, people who might become director soon, what have you. And I do that because you want to see what they're doing, what they're thinking about. I think it's so important that we learn from each other. So don't limit yourself to looking for someone older and wiser. I think, you can see from this panel, we have a plethora of experiences here across all different years. And I think any of us would be happy to engage with you. It's just the ask. So make it worth it. And, hopefully it'll be worth both of your time.
Indeed. Evan, any suggestions or advice for our viewers on approaching someone to be a mentor?
Yeah, I'm going to take the formal route. I'm in the Temple University Young Alumni Mentorship Program as a mentee. And then also I'm in the STHM Alumni Mentorship Program as a mentee. So those are two ways that, I didn't have to approach someone in a, how do I figure it out? It was, you sign up for this thing, and now you kind of get placed with someone and get to start one with them. And you both, in those processes, you apply and you kind of give like, what am I looking to get out of it? And they kind of have the same thing on their side for the mentors. And so you do get paired up based on like kind of matching, goals and what you each want to get out of it. So that's one way, is the formal side. I also think about, like, it depends what company you're going to be at, but employee resource groups, or groups like this, right, are ways that you're in a network with people that aren't your age. I mean, some that are, but it's any age. It's not an age-related thing. So employee resource groups, I'll just give, an example. There might be a Black sports professionals group, right? And so you can, and it's only for like your company. Say you're at the Sixers, it can be a Black sports professionals group at the Sixers. And now you have 15 people, and one's a SVP, one's a coordinator. It doesn't matter. You all fit the criteria, so you're all part of the group. So that's how you can make these smaller connections and make a 300-person organization, or even a 3,000-person organization, feel like a small group, and there's easier connections to be made across very different business lines, very different age groups, levels of title, all that.
And before we close with Erica, one thing towards that is, this is tougher if you are just starting with a company, but for those who may be with the company, possibly creating those groups because you notice they don't exist. That's a great suggestion that I think, more folks should look towards doing, is how do I help others who might relate to similar struggles or adversities that I've had, and that might come into this career or job looking at it as something very daunting. How can I be that outreach and become a mentor to others as well? I don't put an age limit on a mentor. I have mentors who are younger than me. That's perfectly fine. It's about, connecting with people and respecting, their expertise, their knowledge, and what they can impart in you. It's always good to be on the hunt for those folks who can bring something, to you and help you reach another level. But let's close out, this with Erica. Do you have any advice or tips towards approaching someone to be your mentor?
Sure. I think the very first thing is that people need to realize if it's a mentor that they actually want. Like I said, my board of directors varies. I think people say mentor, and that's a very vague and broad umbrella, when really you can either have a mentor, an ally, or a sponsor. So real quickly, I'll kind of break down what those are. Mentor, again, this is the term that we've always heard. This is someone who tends to be older, wiser, more experienced, may or may not have the position that you're hoping to get later on, but they can impart wisdom on you. An ally does not necessarily have to be someone who is even in your industry. This is just someone who is willing to reach out and help you, whether it's someone that's going to proofread your resume or help you, practice for an upcoming panel interview or things like that. And then you have the sponsor. The sponsor is the person that's going to put their career, their job, their title on the line to vouch for you. They're going to open up their already established network to you in order to help you get an opportunity. So I think really everyone who's looking for a mentor, you kind of have to be honest with yourself where, do I want this person to just be able to be my network to help me as an ally if I get, an interview, they're really good at resume writing or they're really good at interview prep, or if this is a mentor where he or she has the position that I hope to have in 5-10 years from now. So let me try to soak up all of their wisdom. Or it's, hey, I want this job. I want to work with this company. My sponsor has a connection with this job, this recruiter or this company. So my sponsor will then step in for me during my interview process and vouch for me. So I think that's kind of my tip, is just to be clear on what you want, and then you'll know how you want to, approach those different people that will help you along, your career. I have numerous allies. I have a few mentors. I will look for a sponsor high and low, because that is kind of like the diamond in the rough, especially within professional sports. So that's definitely a tip that I will have, is just to, call it exactly the title of what it would be. And then that will kind of dictate the relationship that you have with that person.
Fantastic, fantastic. Great responses from our entire panel for all these questions. Now we're about to transition to some Q&A questions that we've gotten, a few before the session and some during. And by all means, if you're still with us watching and you have any questions, whether it be specifically for one of our panelists or a general question for anyone to answer, please throw them in the Q&A and we'll try to get to them in this next 10, 15 minutes or so. But one question we had come in during the panel from Christy was a great question for these times. How are you networking during COVID? And we'll open this up to anyone to answer. I'll throw, my 2 cents in there. I think one thing I've never actually used Meetup before. I always was very privy to in-person networking events without actually having to go search them out. But now I've actually started to use meetup.com to find networking opportunities, virtual networking opportunities that folks have in certain industries or regions. And, between that, I'm also a member of a couple Chamber of Commerce's, which they have virtual networking events on a regular basis. And quite frankly, I got like 2 or 3 more, but I'll let someone else answer and kind of give their thoughts on what they're doing to network during COVID. So anyone on the panel who'd like to take that, feel free.
So for me, I'm a current member of WISE, which is Women in Sports and Events. So I think during, COVID, when everyone is kind of inside and you really don't have the opportunity, a lot of conferences have now become virtual. So there's not a lot of, some are more sophisticated where they might have breakout rooms, but some it's really, you're just been, because I know I've logged into all of the ESPNW conferences that they've had, because honestly, they're free this year. So, with a lot of, big networking groups, whether it's something like WISE or it's Women in Sports and Events that have a chapter in almost all the major cities, when they have their, events, it kind of helps you when it comes to networking. You don't really have to try very hard and go searching, to Evan's point that he made earlier in terms of how to reach out to a mentor. If you're part of these professional development groups, either as a student or as a young professional where you're no longer a student, follow their social media pages, follow their LinkedIn pages, to be able to see any upcoming events that they have. Because even though they're not doing in-person events, they still have their schedule and they still have events that they're now trying to retrofit to make it virtual. There's still people on their board that can kind of help you out. So, don't get discouraged about it being, you're not in person. I actually think the stress of being able to network from your own house or from some place that you feel more comfortable in, I've definitely noticed that people tend to be more willing to have these discussions because they didn't have to get up at 6 a.m., leave the hotel, go to the place where the conference is actually being held. All they did was get up and go to their living room or their office. So they're kind of more refreshed and definitely more willing to engage in deeper conversation.
Gotcha. Anyone else want to chime in?
Yeah, if I can just add as well, once you do make a connection from whatever networking event you've been to, and I've had a few students and young alumni reach out to me over the STHM Connections platform, I've actually liked setting up phone calls. As retro as that sounds, I love a phone call these days. I am so Zoom fatigued. So I would say that's been kind of my bread and butter during this time. Is emails are great, Zoom's fine, but like if I can just get you on the phone and like chat with you for 15 minutes, I appreciate that. And I've seen a lot of other recruiters and industry professionals that I work with value phone calls more than ever. I'll also just add as well, I volunteer a lot of my time now that we're in COVID time. So if you're able to volunteer or give back in any way, that's one, a great networking opportunity, but two, you're also, giving your time if you're out of work or if you need something else to do to hopefully a really meaningful cause.
Awesome.
I take the positive side on this. I'm actually excited that people think it's normal to ask for a Zoom or a video call and not be as weird. you know, you used to, if 6 months ago, imagine you typed to someone that you've never met before, that you just connected with on LinkedIn. Hey, thanks for the connection. Do you want to do a Zoom? They'd be like, what? Like, I'm not like inviting you to my home or sitting at my desk with the headphones in while my office is going on. Like, it would have been so weird. So the fact that you can get like a little bit more personal connection because you're seeing their face while they're talking versus just the phone call, actually, to me, like, feels like that it's harder when you make an ask a few months later or even just a week later for them to say no, because they know like what you look like, they connected with you, they looked into your eyes. So that's my take on it, but I think there's times and places for both, and that's kind of key to it.
I think one thing I'll add on to that too is I've taken a lot of time to not necessarily look for new people to network, but to touch base with folks that I'm already connected with and look to build with them. I'm definitely Zoom fatigued, but I'm also super excited about Zoom because with me, especially in the realm of sales, a lot of that face-to-face interaction and selling in person is much more successful than over the phone. So if I was limited to just phone and really couldn't speak to someone, couldn't gauge body language and have that other element of communication, I would be at a disadvantage. So I push Zoom heavy, and I use this time to connect with those folks that I might not have spoken to since last year, or I was, you know, we talked about doing a project together but never executed on it. I'm just going to touch base and see how they're doing and have a general conversation and see where it leads to. But I'm definitely taking some of this time during COVID to do that. So from a, you know, either a student perspective or a young alumni perspective, you know, are there folks who came to speak at your school that you would love to follow up with? Are there, you know, people that are in certain industries, like you want to get in with the Sixers? Are there folks you're connected with at the Sixers on LinkedIn? Send them a message, see if they're open to chat and letting you pick their brain, and just see where those kind of conversations go. We'll take another question here. And this one we touched on a little bit during our panel, but I think it's a really, really good one to dive a little deeper into. It's how's everyone on the panel leveraging LinkedIn to maintain and grow their professional network? And the reason why I wanted to touch on this briefly, because there's the LinkedIn rabbit hole is deep. I personally say that it goes a little bit beyond just using the platform. It's using the platform correctly. So putting time and energy into your description on LinkedIn. If you have done jobs, internships even, you can get someone to write you a little testimonial or recommendation for your LinkedIn account. Do what you can to build up your profile, because you are going to have a lot of folks that are going to judge an acceptance of a conversation based on what they see. So being active, sharing articles that are related to the industry you love. If you want to take it another step, actually getting on a program like a Canva or something and giving yourself a background on your page. All these things really go a long way in you being able to utilize LinkedIn to the fullest. So I think it's a great time to take some time and perfect your profile and really put energy into it. And even in that case, it could be a door open to a conversation. Asking someone you want as a mentor, hey, I just updated my LinkedIn account. Could you look at it and just tell me what you think, or if you have any recommendations? You can use that as an opportunity to start conversations as well. Does anyone else on the panel have any sort of suggestions towards utilizing LinkedIn and how you're using that to build your professional connections?
So for me, LinkedIn has a feature where you can kind of upload or post either a website that's pertaining to you or something that you've worked on. So I think it's definitely helped me if I've now certain things are proprietary. So, that I work with my company, so it's not really something that I can, post. But, to Zach's point, whether if it's, a panel that I spoke on, or if it was like an entire league initiative that I helped with, something that was, made public, but, I can, spearhead it to be specific to what I'm currently doing. So for example, the Atlanta Hawks was the first NBA team to announce that they would be retrofitting our arena to be a polling location. And then within a couple of weeks, it kind of spearheaded throughout the entire league. So all teams that were able to, were able to do the same thing. So that was something that was made public, but then being able to kind of post about our journey, being able to post about myself volunteering, to be a certified poll worker and things like that, to kind of show that every day, while I do have my regular duties, we are a community, the sports and recreation community, no matter what team that you're in, whether it's minor league sports, athletics, or whether it's professional sports, it's still a community. So being able to kind of showcase not only your technical skills, but any soft skills, any interpersonal relationship skills that you can post within LinkedIn, it'll kind of be able to show you as a more well-rounded person, because given time, anybody can figure out how to work Excel and a pivot table. So it's kind of they're being able to look at your LinkedIn to kind of get a little bit of your personality and to kind of see what you find important, and they'll be able to see if that's a cultural fit for them before they even really spoke to you.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to look at this from a recruiting lens really quickly, just with someone who has had LinkedIn Recruiter, who's had to search for candidates through LinkedIn. I will say those buzzwords are so key, but not only the buzzwords, acronyms as well. So sometimes recruiters will just do a search for the acronyms. They might do a search for the entire word. So just making sure if there's an acronym or a word that is key in the industry, if it's in the job description, you might want to tailor your LinkedIn to that a bit more when you're applying to something. Now, on the opposite side of that, you don't want your LinkedIn to be your resume. You need to kind of have something hidden behind that profile so that you can actually speak about something in the interview. And then finally, this is what I coach our MBA students on when I do my spring LinkedIn session with them, is you can go to any company who has a profile on LinkedIn, go to the People's tab on the left-hand side, and you can search people by what school they went to, by their title, by their connections. You can literally find the director of recruiting, the director of diversity, someone in a role that you might want to get into, and connect with them. That's the most beautiful thing about LinkedIn and one of the best updates they've ever done, ever. And I use it frequently as well when I'm even sourcing recruiters to benefit my own students. So just remember, LinkedIn is a tool you can use. You do not have to in-mail everyone. You do not need premium. Make those connection messages quick, concise, and make that person, make them want to learn more about you, is what I'll end by saying.
Great advice. Did anyone else on the panel want to touch on the topic? All right. Well, our other questions, we kind of covered them in the form of our panel. So I think we're going to start to close now. I really do appreciate all of you for being on the panel, for talking with our students and young alumni who joined in today. Quick housekeeping announcement. Of course, you'll be able to see a replay of this on our STHM Mac YouTube page, as well as STHM Connections website. And I encourage you all to follow us. Follow STHM Mac on Facebook if you are a alumni. If you are a student, please follow us on Instagram. And if you're on LinkedIn, follow us in general. Come to the Mac LinkedIn page. That's alumni and students. And as you see on the screen right now, we are having our last mixer of 2020. It's going to be called Friendsgiving. Well, a Mac Friendsgiving or an STHM Friendsgiving. And we're going to have an awesome game of trivia that we're going to play. Big shout out to Naoshi and Jana from our events committee on putting this together. And we're encouraging folks to bring some recipes. I know we can't be together to eat and have a good time, but bring us a quick recipe of one of your favorite holiday dishes. And maybe we'll put together a little Mac cookbook and share it out to the rest of the group. But I'll hand it back to Elena now. But again, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you all of our panelists for dropping some knowledge on our attendees. And we can't wait to see you all at our next Mac panel in 2021. Looking forward to a new year. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much, Zack. And thank you to all of our panelists for sharing their experiences and their best practices for building these important relationships. This is such a great topic because the advice that you received today, you can start using immediately and regardless of where your career takes you in your industry or outside of your industry. This advice is truly evergreen. And so I hope you took some notes and wrote some things down because this was excellent advice from all of our panelists. This concludes today's webinar. A recording will be available in the coming week on both our STHM Connections platform and on the Max YouTube channel, as Zack mentioned. So thank you all for joining us. I hope you have a great night and a great holiday next week.